I want to thank all of our audience for joining in on a Friday afternoon when Seth, Megan, Allison, and myself were talking about what we wanted to accomplish as part of the Sports Analytics Virtual Symposium. One of the things that we thought would be a neat idea was to celebrate folks that have reached the pinnacle. And in that note, we want to finish on a positive note. And I'm super stoked to talk with these four analysts. I want to give a comparison. I thought as I was thinking about this panel and people that like have actually won something important, I tried to think like what was the last like sort of sports specific title that I took part in and like actually won. And I have a trophy that I found. This is it says Super Senior, Mike Lopez 2004 to 2008. And so as far as I can remember, this is a trophy I got because I went on a ski trip for 4 years, 5 straight years. So simply by attending a ski trip, I won something, and I'm pretty sure that that's like the last thing of athletic merit that I can think of. So I'm actually really excited to have people that have done something way more important than that. Although I was excited that I still had that trophy. So I'm going to introduce my panelists today. Alex Mishu is the data analyst at the Columbus Crew, where he is tasked to develop models and analysis to help the coaching staff and front office make informed decisions. He provides the coaches and front office with interpretable data and translating that information into visualizations to explain findings meaningful to different staff members at the club. Alex, welcome. Next, we have Megan Schroeder, the Director of Performance Science for the Los Angeles Dodgers. In her role, she leverages new technologies to help understand how players can optimize their movement patterns for better health and on-field performance. Welcome, Megan. We have Diana Ma. Diana is in her third season as a data scientist with the Los Angeles Lakers. And lastly, we have Sean Harrington, who is currently the CEO and founder of Notemeal. Notemeal is a company where the goal is, and Sean can fill us in a little bit more, the goal is optimizing athlete nutrition. Prior to his startup at Notemeal, Sean was a 4-year analyst for the Patriots as a software engineer and director of software engineering. So welcome to our panelists, and let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your role on your team, because we actually are lucky enough to have 4 really fairly unique roles in terms of what each of the 4 of you was sort of working on your clubs. And Alex, you're first in my rotation, so we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. So my role at Columbus Crew, I've kind of got like 3 roles in one. So I really focus on anything soccer analytics that comes through me. So a lot of what I do is mainly focused around the performance side. So when I mean the performance side, how much are guys running? What is their soreness level? So anything relating to the player health, it comes through me. The other part is I work a lot with the technical side. So I also work with the coaching staff on creating reports about how the game went, whether we overexceeded our goals or we didn't achieve a target that we were looking for. And then also I help with the recruitment side. So the advantage of data analytics is we can quickly go around the world and go find people who play our style of play. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to say, here's a whole bunch of players that fit our style of play, and which ones are the best.
Great. Well, we'll go to Meg.
Yeah, hi. Thank you again for having me. Appreciate it. So my team focuses on data related to how players move. So looking at, a pitcher throwing the baseball or a batter swinging, like we're able to, measure all of that in game and kind of do back end analysis and reporting to help our coaches inform the players and get them back to like their best level of performance. So that, at the major league level, we have a lot of tools where we can do all of that stuff in game. We also work pretty extensively with our player development group, our minor league players, using new technologies to start to measure those types of things as well and help them develop our players into hopefully Major League Dodgers someday.
Great. Sean, how about Major League Patriots? What was some of the things that you took on in your time with New England?
Yeah, Michael, thanks for having me on. Just a quick note for some humor. I know we had a good run with the Patriots, and I was fortunate to be a part of it. But before that, I spent 4 years at Tufts University. Mike is also a NESCAC football player. My record at Tufts was 1-31, so we didn't do a lot of winning there at all. So for the record, I have a last place trophy for 4 years straight. I wish I could show it to you, but you can imagine what it looks like. So yeah,
was that one win against Bates?
the win was against no, it was against Hamilton, and it was the first game of my freshman year. We lost every game after that. It was unbelievable, statistically improbable, Mike.
Bates, but we'll get into that later.
So super quick. So my role with the Patriots, I led up the software engineering team. Also playing a role on the analytics team. We were responsible working for serving a number of departments. The majority of the work was done really on the personnel side of things. So injecting objective data right into models where decisions were historically made using subjective analysis of players by scouts. So we kind of counterplay. We provided a different perspective on analyzing players during the drafting process, the free agency process. We also worked quite a bit in the performance realm. Return to play, managing integrations with athlete management systems and building some of those applications in-house, which has led to the current venture in Notemeal, which I will, we can talk on that maybe later, but I'll keep the scope short.
Last and definitely not least, Diana, tell us a little bit about your role in the Lakers.
Hi. First, thank you for having me and for organizing this awesome conference. So a background about our team. With the Lakers, we're a pretty small team. It's only 3 people. We're the analytics team, or also known as like the British royalty team, because our names are Philip, Harry, and Diana. So Philip is the senior manager of basketball analytics, and then Harry is our developer and analyst, and I'm the data scientist. And because we're like a pretty small team, one of the advantages is that we sort of touch on like everything. So all of us have like a really active role in, with the front office, with the coaching side, with the scouting side, G League, sports performance. And so every day is a little different and no day is ever boring. As a data scientist, I'm responsible for like the modeling portion, for example, like the draft model, and data cleaning, things like that. And also a bit of, I would say like 30% is more of like a bit of a data engineering role. So helping with our nightly pipelines and making sure all the data gets uploaded and making sure secondary scripts run, stuff like that. And then also part of it is just like showing, presenting our findings and stuff to different capabilities. Yep.
Perfect. So thanks for that. So I want to ask Alex and Megan a question, which is they each have advanced degrees in biomedical fields. In fact, Megan, I believe, has a PhD. And that's a little bit unique in the sense that it's probably not something that a lot of sports or not all teams have. And so how does that help inform some of the ideas that you've brought to your organizations in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I can get started. So yeah, my background is in biomedical engineering, biomechanics specifically. In graduate school, my dissertation focused on how people move following an ACL reconstruction. I had experienced that injury personally in my life in high school playing basketball, and then again in graduate school while I was doing that work, my other knee. So, in that experience and going through graduate school, I learned a lot about motion capture technologies, force plates, ground reaction force measurements, EMG data collection as well. And it's been, getting people to participate in a graduate school study is difficult. And And now working for a baseball team, we're able to actually collect that same type of data, but we have so much of it, like every swing, every pitch. Just the volume of data is incredible. And it's been really fascinating for me to be able to directly apply like some of the knowledge that I gained in all my academic studies, to players and to baseball specifically.
That's pretty awesome. I feel like a lot of people that go on to grad school and then go into sports, that some of that stuff applies, but to have it, be so one-to-one is very cool, and hopefully makes up for the personal experience with your knees. Alex, how about on your end?
So I have a background in biomedical informatics. I got my master's of public health at Ohio State University, where basically it's the role of combining computer science and medicine. What we're looking at to do is taking data to information to knowledge to wisdom. So that's something I do every day here, where we're looking at whether a guy he goes through a series of 7 tests in the morning, where we're looking at how it's called readiness to train, right? So we're looking at different jump scores, as Megan mentioned, or we're looking at their sit and reach. We're looking at a different series of tests where we're able to say, here's the data, and we can move it to information, and then can we translate that to knowledge where we can go back to our coaches and say, here's what we recommend, and here's how we should move forward with training, or here's how we should move forward from a game.
Perfect. I have a little bit of a different question for Sean and Diana, which is just based on some articles I've read over the years. So for folks that are tuning in, Diana was on Forbes called NBA's Best Kept Secret. And Sean, there was an article that the headline was, Sean is the secret genius whose role on the Patriots cannot be described. So I feel like, first of all, I'm blowing up the spot a little bit in terms of ruining the secrecy. But more importantly, is there something in your mind? I mean, obviously you saw these things written about you. The sort of value of analytics work, it's kept under the radar. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How did that, what was the sort of reaction when those things came out?
So I'll jump in, Mike. So that's funny. I think it took 2 years just to get in the game day manual for me. And it was, I didn't even know I wasn't in there. Right? I think my parents were at a game and they looked for their son in the game manual and they never found him. So, it's funny. I think there's obviously, the models, the analytics, the processes, the software frameworks and pipelines that get developed in-house. It's just such an appreciating asset that these clubs hold on to. And if done right, if data is collected in the right way, becomes quite valuable. And that said, it's funny now I'm on the outside right now. I'm working with 40 clubs right now on the vendor side. And, we're starting now, I'll have these conversations with other NFL teams, folks in analytics departments, in MLB analytics departments. And we start to have some high level conversations, and the conversations go a little bit deeper than they probably would have if I was still working for the club, without divulging information. But you start to, you walk away from that conversation saying, oh, it's funny. There were definitely some problems that we were solving that you also had solved. And that makes sense, right? Just you're going to solve the low hanging fruit. And of course you walk away, you also kind of walk away with a nice, oh yeah, but they didn't figure that one out. Right. And of course the other party's walking away from that conversation saying, oh, Johnny, they weren't anywhere close. Right. So it's funny. I mean, I think it's good to see the analytics, just the hiring process start to happen a lot more frequently, and these teams start to grow. And Mike, like you've spearheaded that in the NFL quite a bit, so kudos to you there. But I think it's a good thing that the hiring and the jobs teams are more open about their investments in those departments. But again, I think there's certainly a lot of value in keeping that very proprietary, like anything else.
So to answer, I think it's important for, like for me, for that article, I thought it was really important that like girls and young women saw that, especially girls and young women of color, like seeing somebody that looks like me, somebody, that didn't go to an Ivy League school, that's Chinese and is an immigrant to this country, succeeding in, this very coveted field, this very male dominated field. I thought that was really important. And I think Erin, in one of the previous panels, said it really well. It's important to get out there so people can see and picture themselves in these positions. One great thing that came out of that article was I had like a lot of women reaching out to me being like, I never even knew like jobs like this existed. This is so cool. Like maybe I could work in this field one day, and that's awesome. And in terms of like keeping analytics work under the table or under the radar, I think I agree with Sean as well. Like definitely like I feel like now like analytics is like, what you do is sort of like, I guess, seen as like competitive advantage. And that's why teams are very secretive about that. And I think another interesting thing about analytics is just that like, for teams, it has this like really awesome ability to just like bring everyone together in a department. It really helps open, I feel like, doors to more dialogue between like the scouting side and like the coaching side a lot of the times. And it just like our value a lot of the times, it's like spreading wide. There's not one specific thing that like, oh, if you do this, you're like, you've made it, you're great, you're great at analytics or whatever. It's like more about like the holisticness of it all.
Yeah, and then that's a great answer. I think my next question is thinking sort of back to whatever title season in Sean's case, multiple title seasons. Describe what that was like, and there are a couple things that I'm thinking of. Best parts of that experience, or sort of just sort of things that went through your mind as you're, whether you were, in the stadium or in the arena, or whether you're watching at home, or maybe it was a playoff match or something like that. What do you think back on when you remember your title season? And I think I don't know whose was most recent, but Alex, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, we won MLS Cup on December 12th, I'm pretty sure. So it's pretty recent. We're actually right now in preseason. So we're out here in California right now. I think about 45 minutes ago, I just came off the field from training. So it's been really fast, and it's a quick turnaround to get going again. From the title season, man, this was a crazy year. We went through, and I had so many different projects I was going through, talking to this person, getting information to that person. And I remember we were in the playoff game. We just played New York Red Bulls. And I don't know if you know how New York Red Bulls play, but they play very aggressive. They want to go in, they want to hit you. They're always a tough game. And we won the game 3-2. And I came off the field and was like, wow, that was a great game. I'm really excited. We're just through to the second round. And walked into the locker room and looked at all the players, and they were blank face. Like they were just like, next one, let's go. And I was like, wow, this is so different. And you knew, like, here we go. We're actually going to go for this.
Awesome. I think the Dodgers would have been the previous one. So Megan, we'll go next to you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this season was an interesting one. We weren't, sure if it was even going to happen. I'll take a step back. So I started with the team in 2015. So I was with the team as we went through, the heartbreak of 2017 and 2018 and losing those World Series matchups. And now in 2020, on a personal note, I was actually coming back from maternity leave. I gave birth to my daughter in February. So I wasn't at spring training when it was shut down. I was, at home. And then, started back virtually in May. still not sure if we were like, what was going to happen with the season. But then, things started going, and then we have the gauntlet of an expanded playoffs. And, the first few rounds of playoffs in baseball are always, a little bit of luck or a lot of luck sometimes to get through. So, it was fun to just be able to watch those games, but bittersweet not being able to be at the stadium and, be there with your coworkers and colleagues and enjoy it in the moment. I mean, we tried to do that over Zoom, but it's obviously not, not the same. But I'll never forget the feeling of just, watching those games and like sometimes I was even like with my daughter in the room, like holding her in the dark on my phone with headphones in and like silently cheering, watching Mookie Betts score in game 6. But yeah, I mean, it's something that's never going to be taken away. And it's just something I'm always going to cherish, and hopefully can get another one this year. That would be great.
Lakers season similar, I think, with respect to the Dodgers in terms of timing, uncertainty, delays, that type of thing. What do you remember, Diana?
First, definitely just winning the championship. That was such an amazing moment. I feel like at the start of the season, everybody, had a bit of a chip on their shoulder, and to win was awesome. And definitely it's similar with Megan's feelings, like not sure if like the season was even going to happen. And, at that point we were the number 1 seed. And just all that uncertainty was not great. And I think another one of my favorite memories was just playoff prep and just that roller coaster. And so we always talk about how the Lakers, we pretty much had to like game plan for the most opponents. So first it was like the play-in round where it was Pollard and Memphis, but before that there was like 4 or 5 teams in the race. And then next round it was Houston, OKC, where Houston was up 2-0. And then like that series like pretty much came down to like the last possession. And then Clippers Denver, where Clippers were up 3-1, and we all thought we were going to be playing the Clippers. That like ever since, I feel like since before the season even started, there was like this narrative in LA of like battle of LA, battle of Clippers versus Lakers. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of bought into that like narrative and was like, okay, then we're ready to face the Clippers. And then we ended up facing Denver. I remember after game 6, we like pretty much had to pull an all-nighter prepping. So that was a lot of fun. And then luckily, like pretty much by the time we got to during the conference finals, we were like pretty much scouting for our next opponent. And we were like, okay, guys, we're essentially going to play probably both the Celtics and the Heat. Let's just go with that assumption while we work on this. And that was, so it definitely made me look at game 7s in a different way. It really made me appreciate, everybody loves game 7s, but nobody ever talks about the staffers who have to prep. Definitely really made me appreciate game 7s in a different way. And just working with everyone's remote, working with Philip and Harry and just staying connected. And we got to sit in on the coaching meetings during the playoffs, or sit in like on Zoom. And, those were so awesome and so valuable. And so I'm working remotely from East Coast time, but poor Philip had to be up at like 5 a.m. every day. And, a lot of great memories.
Love it. And inspiring, to be honest, from Alex, Megan, Diana to hear it. Sean, you have a couple potential ones you can pull from. If you would give a little bit of background into sort of how you fit in maybe on some of those teams, and then also some of your memories.
Yeah. So I joined the team right after they had won. I wasn't there for the Seattle game. Of course, like the interception in the end zone, and Grew up in Boston, so that was an exciting game outside looking in. Fast forward a year now, I'm like working for this team that I grew up watching, and this was a while back. This was probably like 7 years ago now. So, yeah, 7 years ago. So then then came that Atlanta Falcons game, right? Probably one of the most memorable games I've ever seen, let alone like be a part of, right? So being a part of that win, that was cool. I'd been with the club for about a year then, but again, most of my work that during that part of like the time I spent with New England was done on the personnel side. So a lot of that whole victory was great, and it was really cool, but it kind of felt a little bit empty, right? Because I was working on like, we were like trading futures, right? So like we were the return on the investment we were making with our team was going to come next year, right? Because it was all the draft stuff, it was all the free agency stuff, developing the young guys, making some decisions at that level. So we won the first one, and that was great. But I just kind of wasn't, I wanted to get back out there and get more exposure, get another shot there. So that following year we lost to the Eagle, or might have been the year after that we lost to the Eagles. That was a tough loss. I remember talking about like bad memories. We walked 2 miles through Minnesota. It was like negative 15 degrees out after we lost that game. We walked outside back to the bus, and that was just like a disaster. And a funny little anecdote there, we got back to the stadium, and just the expectation inside of that building, right? I remember there was an announcement, like we got an email that said, "Hey, AFC rings are here. Come pick them up when you can," right? So we went filed down there, picked up a bag each, and walked back to our. Meanwhile, like this is like those, some teams are working so hard just to get there. Like there some teams would have like celebrations to get the AFC ring, and they were just like, you guys are. This was like a gross disappointment. Like, this is pathetic. You guys can have your token of appreciation, but that's it. So the culture is just, it was there's nothing like it I've ever been a part of. So obviously the final win against the Rams, that was the first one where I went in there, really feeling like we had an impact. I could name the guys on the roster and where they came from, like what college they went to, what the write-ups, what the evaluations were, why we thought they were going to be a good fit at this position, at this level in the depth chart. Like, we knew the whole thing inside and out because we'd built it, right? So winning that one, and I'm sure folks in this panel can relate. Like, when you invest that much time, when you're in there from 6 to 8 every freaking day, right, for weekends and you get that one, it just means so much more. So that was a great experience. But I think one of the coolest things too is Diana, you mentioned it briefly, but having this little platform, right, where you can all of a sudden, like, you just won a Super Bowl and you got a Super Bowl ring. And I remember going back to my high school, like little old chumps from high school, and I wanted to go like talk to those kids, because all of a sudden I got this platform to speak to and to get through to folks on. And I remember talking to all these. There were a lot of athletes in there, and there were some non-athletes. And part of the thing that I was kind of harping on was, hey, you don't have to the athletes, right? It was, hey guys, this isn't where the train stops, right? You got to invest in your education, right? Like, didn't win the Super Bowl because I was good at football. I was 1-31 at Tufts, and I was a slap outside linebacker that couldn't make a tackle. Ask my coach, right? But you did it because you spent 8 years learning computer science. That's why I got a Super Bowl ring. So getting through to those guys and using that platform to get through to folks at that level. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's, hey, maybe Phil, you're not playing football, you're not playing sports, you're a high school athlete, but you love this stuff. You look up to these folks winning championships, and you can do this too. Like, this is a really great platform to use. So when you win these championships, like, everyone should be using this as a platform to encourage more folks to do the same thing, right? So that I'll never forget that. Like, seeing my old like high school coaches and athletic directors, and like being able to get through to their guys. So that was a real cool part of the whole experience. So
awesome, very cool. And I think that there are a lot of other folks that haven't won titles, and so to know like that this group has done it and has felt that excitement is honestly inspirational. I think those are team wins. I want to ask another question about some individual wins, in the sense that, think back to some of the things that you worked on with teams, and maybe you have a good example, maybe it's more general, but what are some smaller wins that maybe were a decision that you remember being made, or a role that you took on that maybe gave you a bigger say in the picture. But there's not only just sort of wins in the long run where the team wins the title, there's also wins in the short run. Does anyone have any good examples they can think about where they realize like, oh, wow, I'm having a bigger impact, or, analytics is a bigger part of the conversation at my club now?
I can start with this, I guess. We were in the playoffs against Nashville, or just about to go play Nashville. And unfortunately, with this crazy year, someone in the club got COVID. So obviously, when you get COVID in Major League Soccer, everything shuts down. So we lost a training day. And I was talking with our head coach, Caleb Porter, talking with our head of sports science and medicine, Chris Schenberger. And we were just trying to figure out a plan, like, how can we make sure that we keep our guys fit and getting ready to go play a major playoff game? So our head coach looked at me, looked at Chris, and said, hey, develop a plan. We need to train our guys without the soccer ball and go figure it out. So here we are, we're looking at every single drill that we could do. And we said, hey, here's an idea. Let's try this. We executed the plan, and then we went in, played a 120-minute game against Nashville, and ended up winning 2-0. And it was, when we won that game, oh my God, I just was like, wow, I made a difference.
Awesome. Megan, Diane, or Sean, any examples you can think about?
I've got a quick one. I think the first, it might have been the first time where we, when you first start with a team, you're at least where you kind of shut your mouth. The folks that have been there for a long time, and if they've had success, they've had success, and there's a certain tenure that you get that allows you to speak your mind. And the first few years, I was kind of asked to do things and told to do things, and I remember that kind of, it was like a pivotal moment, I guess, like leading into the draft, where I was like, I'd been kind of pressing about just getting some kind of like a digital presence in the draft, right? Just something, right? Something outside of like the magnets and the paper, and like you guys have all seen that stuff, right? So the first time where you kind of stand up and you say to the GM or to the head coach, and you just say, hey, like I've got this idea, and you need to give this a shot. You got to give this a shot. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I won't ask again, but you got to give this a shot. And taking that first step, you better be right? But as soon as you're right, they start asking you for your ideas. And then you have a lot more sovereignty. But that's a big step for a lot of folks. I think even folks on my team who we were developing as we were building our team, when they had an idea, they were coming to me, or when I left, they were taking my role and they were going to coach with it. So I'm sure everyone can relate to that pivotal moment when like they felt confident enough in their idea and their implementation of that idea that they wanted to share it and really push it out there for the Vultures, right? So kind of a general story, but albeit I think an important one.
Did it work?
Yeah, it worked. Hell yeah. They kept, oh man, the coolest part about that, I never forget it. Casario comes running out of the draft room, and that guy like just like high energy, right? It's like 9:30 at night. I'm drinking a coffee. He comes around. He's like, dude, let's go, man, let's go. He's like, this thing's awesome, man. So it's good. You've got that little window, right? It's like a 3-hour window that it better work and better not blow up. So no, it means a lot, those little things. So
awesome. I'm glad it worked. Diana, what do you think?
So before the season started, like that was a year where, we had pretty much a brand new coaching staff. On our end, we were like configuring our entire database and shifting things over, a lot of moving parts. And, we wanted to try out this in-game system and have like in-game stats that the coaches can look at. And so building that whole part was, it took a long time. It was a very we all learned a lot during that process, but like we put in so many hours into it. And I just remember like the first game, we were like our first season opener game, and we were just like, it was live, it was running, and I just remember me, Phil, and Harry. So we were at Staples, but it was a Clippers game, so technically we were like in enemy territory, and we were all huddled in like one of the I think one of like the coaches like changing rooms, and it was like a tiny little room, and we were just, it smelled a little weird, but we were all there with our computers, and to just like see sort of this thing we've been working on for like months just come alive and work and run, and hearing great feedback about it from like the coaching staff was just so awesome. Just seeing all of our like hard work pay off, and seeing it have an impact was really cool.
Awesome. Any examples you can think of, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, so my team has had a really close relationship with our player development group. So our minor league staff, we've been able to kind of do some non-traditional things and like test out new tech, and I can point to several examples, but it's been cool because we've been able to like actually identify in data like, okay, this minor league player's swing, if he looks kind of like Cody Bellinger, and if we work with him to like do these little tweaks, like maybe we can get him to a point where he's able to kind of follow that trajectory and hopefully make it to the big leagues.
Awesome. I think for the attendees and participants, I mean, those type of micro wins are certainly more feasible, more tangible in terms of like likelihood to happen. I mean, the sports world is a zero-sum game. There's only 4 panelists up here. There's not an endless list that I could have chosen from as we designed this panel. And it's nice to hear the sort of excitement in your voices when you're talking about things that are smaller, right? That are short-term, well, in some cases long-term, but certainly not as evident to the outside world. I'm going to ask one more question, which was in the idea of Seth that I should ask this panel. He wants to ask what's next, right? You win it all, you accomplish this title, and perhaps there's a parade, perhaps there's a party or parties, and you get back to training camp, or you get back to the season, which Alex is quite literally starting now, right? Like, how do we pick ourselves up? How do we run our scripts with the same energy? And I'll open this up to anybody.
I can jump in. I feel like there was, a week or two where it was like, oh, this is really cool, we just won the World Series. But then it was like, all right, let's get back to work. Like, what do we need to do to kind of win the next one? It's always like thinking ahead and doing what we can to continue to improve and get better. Never being complacent or just satisfied with one. So
I think with us, what's pretty cool in the soccer world is when you win the league, you go into what's called Champions League. So I'm sure a lot of you know Champions League. When in Europe, it's an enormous thing. In South America, it's an enormous thing. But in North America, it's probably a little bit quieter, but it's a big deal. So when we won MLS Cup, we relaxed, had a good time the next day. And then probably the day after that, I went, oh, wow, we have a lot more games to play. So from that point, I really realized like, okay, so now we need a game plan, how we're going to play all of these games, because in soccer, it's nonstop movement. How are we going to play basically 20 more games in a season? So immediately it was kind of like, okay, well, we won, got a star, and now we move on. What's the next best thing?
Definitely echo Megan and Alex's sentiments where like you win and it's like that like like that Lego song where like everything is awesome. It's like that for like a day and then it's like, oh wait, like there's next season. Like for the NBA was like our season ended and then the draft was in like 2 weeks or something. And then it was like free agency in like another week or 2 weeks. And then the season started again. So it's almost like you celebrate for like 1 second, you're like, okay, done. And then you just gotta, not start over per se, but gotta start thinking about next season and hopefully, repeating, which I'm sure is a goal for all of us.
I think so. After the first time we kind of went through this and we won. We used to look at it as like we better enjoy that day and that day after and the day after that, because we just lost like 3 weeks of. Because by the way, when you go to the Super Bowl, everyone drops everything, right? Everyone's doesn't matter what you're supposed to be doing. It does not matter. Literally not. Like we're talking about like helping to figure out who's going to be on the plane in the right seat. Like you like this crazy frenzy week where like you have to get all these tickets booked and like all the like the operations we get pulled into. Like coaches are. So it's just kind of chaos and you lose work, right? And so you win it, and then you're like, oh, there's a draft that we have to get ready for, and you got to squeeze the 2 or 3 weeks of lost work into that little period of time. So you get a nice kick in the butt there. So that was the first time. The second time through, when we won, and beat the Rams. Me kind of different take here. I was kind of like, hey, this is really cool. We built the team up. I came in here with like an old Oracle database with a Cold Fusion freaking report engine that people had already won Super Bowls on, and we transformed the whole thing and we built a team up. And for me, I was kind of like thinking, hey, what's next? And now I made the decision then. We finished out that draft and I tied up all the loose ends and I left to go found a company. So any of this stuff, for anyone listening, if you're looking about getting into the sports world, it opens a ton of doors, right? And you're going to take a job at a team and you're going to make dirt. They're going to pay you dirt. You're going to eat the dirt. And then hopefully if you stay long enough, you'll make a little bit and if you're really lucky, get to be a part of something, as opportune as a team winning it all. And, with that, I use it as a springboard, right? Won the Super Bowl and it was no coincidence that I decided to start a company and focus on getting NFL teams on that platform, right? We saw a big inefficiency in our department where there was no tooling for the dietitian to build out meal plans and for the kitchen to communicate with that dietitian to optimize these guys' intake. And we saw tools for the strength and conditioning department, and you get that exposure that you otherwise don't get. So I said, hey, it's on to the next thing. Let's go, recharge the batteries and go do this thing from the ground up again on the other side. So I always joke that now I used to go to the combine and run away from people. Now I get to go to the combine and chase all you guys down and try to sell you stuff. So, but it's the same problems, right? We're still engineering. We're still solving problems for teams. So you still get to scratch that itch from a different side. So.
Awesome. Thanks. And there's actually a good question in the chat that sort of relates to that, which is, do you think coming from a championship team makes your resume look better? I don't know if the resumes of Megan, Diana, and Alex have even been updated to include their championship win yet. But I think it is a question, and I don't know if any of you have any opinions on whether or not that's the case. I guess uncertainty is the it certainly does with players, right? When we think of players, we look back and celebrate the number of titles that certain players have won and condone the players who didn't win a title. I'm not quite sure it's the same with analysts, and probably because analysts recognize, and I think Megan said it earlier, right? Your first postseason MLB series, there's some luck involved, right? And I probably don't want to judge Megan's analysis based on whether or not the Dodgers won that postseason play-in game or play-in 3 games, whatever they do. We'll ask one more question, and then I think that's probably good for today, which comes from Dylan. of your in your examples, what fraction of your projects were driven by the sort of data science folks or the engineering team versus driven from the coaches in terms of allocating, who decided what projects you ended up working on?
I think I just real quick to echo the answer kind of that I before. I mean, for us, it was the first year or two. It was all dictated by the really was all dictated by the coaches and by the performance staff and by the scouts and the personnel staff, right? And you kind of soak all those questions up, and it just kind of builds up, and you're like, geez, like, all right, you gotta have enough of it, and you're like, those aren't the right questions to ask. I'm gonna ask you guys questions, and we're gonna try things like, and you learn, right? You learn what they wanted. You learn what they want, but you need to inject like your domain expertise, which is whether it's statistics, computer science, software engineering, and you need to at some point start coming up with your own ideas. And again, it's like for me specifically, it was like, hey, you had that one chance to get that first one right, get that right, and build off of that. So initially, it's all questions coming. You're getting told what to do because nobody knows how to utilize you, right? Because to them, you're just another asset. When you first get there, you're just like a player. You're just an asset, right? They're trying to extract value out of you, and you need to grab the opportunity and really create more value, right? When you know you can. So.
Definitely agree with that sentiment. First, it's a lot of like if you're, especially with like new staff and stuff. First, you're just trying to build like this trust, and I think Alex also talked about it yesterday in her talk. Just trusting each other. So yeah, a lot of times first it's like you give them what they ask for, and then once you sort of build that trust, you can inject your own thoughts and ideas in there, whether it's like, oh, like maybe we should look at this way instead of this way, or here's something maybe you haven't thought of but I think could be interesting. So I think the sweet spot really is like a combination of both.
For me, I would probably say if it's during the season, I am 99% of the time listening to projects from our coaches or performance staff and just grinding away on them. When we get into the off season, that's when I actually get to have some fun. So that's when I really get to go in and build my projects, how I want to see things, and try to inject something new for the coaches or performance staff to look at and think differently the next year. So really it's intense how much these coaches have questions about random things that you don't even know what they mean, but that's sometimes life.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo kind of what's been said. It's a lot about trust and relationship building. And I think one thing that we've come to learn and improve upon over the years that I've been here is trying to get on the same page with language. So to Alex's point, like sometimes you don't understand what the coaches are saying. It's just because you're like operating on a different language and trying to like find where you can meet in the middle somewhere and kind of continue to push things forward.
Tremendous. I think on that note, we'll call it a panel, which in the instance of this panel, which is the last one, also means we're calling it a conference. I'll close with just one quick note on the panel. Thanks to Alex, Megan, Diana, and Sean. That was really awesome. I mean, it was great to hear your experiences, your bigger wins, your smaller wins, your paths. I think you each have accomplished something really, really impressive. From a sort of side standpoint, I'm going to share my screen here with folks. I have a thread that I started on social media, which I believe you can share. Alex, can you see it? Can you guys see it? Yeah. So this is just a thread of sports analytics people who have won it all. I've kept it on Twitter. I need to update it a little bit. I don't have everybody's picture in. Alex, I believe, is the most recent one. I have Sean in there. Megan and Diana, don't be surprised if I bug you for a picture at some point. I just think it's cool to celebrate the people in our field who have raised those trophies, who have won those rings. and who, quite honestly, shut up the naysayers who have often tried to keep us out. And so congratulations to the four of you for winning, and then obviously as well, thank you for joining us today. I think I'll close with just a quick wrap on the conference in general. Megan, Allison, and Seth and myself got together a couple months ago, and our goal in doing this and having this 2-day symposium was to create an opportunity for folks to hear what happens inside of sports buildings and inside leagues, inside companies that deal with sports. And in some sense, I think we just really are on the tip of the iceberg. We had about 500 participants over the last couple of days. And we're super happy that all the people that came on board were able to do that. We are thinking about doing it again in the future. We're certainly curious to get the input of folks that were participants that listened in. Did you like the panels? Did you not like the panels? What could we do to make it more interactive potentially going forward? Would we do it in person? Would we continue to go with a virtual setting? Those are questions that we are considering, and we want your feedback. Ultimately, we're doing this because we enjoy it, because it's fun. We like to highlight the sort of exciting work in sports analytics, but we also want to push the field forward. We know it can be better from both who is doing it and in terms of the people, but also in terms of the larger field at whole has traditionally been a little bit exclusive, and that's something that's bothered us for quite some time. This conference does not exist without Alyssa, who has put together several of our backgrounds, has helped us on the technology side, and we are grateful for her time. And quite honestly, like I said, I probably would be a total mess right now without all the ease of the technology piece of it. So on that note, that is the Sports Ideas Symposium 2021 version. Use the hashtag Sports Ideas 2021 on behalf of Megan, Allison, and Seth. Thanks so much for joining us, and let's hope to see you at more events in the future. Thanks.